Hey guys, and welcome back to this week's live stream. I hope that everyone has had a safe and productive week. And as you can see in the title, we're going to be discussing a very important topic tonight that I feel we all should be aware of, and I feel that we all should take part of. But before we get into tonight's discussion, I just wanted to talk to everyone about the importance of liking and sharing the videos. What I've noticed with YouTube is that certain topics that are being discussed, not just for my channel, but channels that have an even larger platform and some with an even less platform, is that certain topics, people are flagging the topics. So when you may come in and search for a particular topic, it may not be as prevalent or as easy to find because certain individuals just don't want certain things to be discussed. So if you are here for the first time and you're either in the live stream or watching the playback, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. What that does is it puts the video more in the forefront so that others will be able to see what it is that we're discussing here, and we're able to get the message out to more people. So it's very, very important to like, share the video, hit the notification bell, subscribe, and comment as well. So I hope that everyone would do that and help to get the message out. Um, as we all know, this past week, rapper Nipsey Hussle was laid to rest. His funeral or homegoing celebration, however you refer to it, it took place this past week. And for me, it was just something very, very sad to see his mother, his brother, his fiancee Lauren London, his children, everyone coming together to lay Nipsey to rest. And like I said, Nipsey was a very young man. He was only 33 years old. And to me, it's just very hurtful when we see Black men doing exactly what it is that we would like to see Black men do in the community, and for his life to just be taken away like that at such a young age while he was in the prime of his life and his works in the community. It's just a very sad and unfortunate thing to witness. My heart goes out to his family. And for those of you that did watch the homegoing services, you noticed how spiritually strong his mother was, how at peace she was with his passing, because she has a higher understanding for, our physical lives here on this planet, and how we all know at some point, our physical experience here is going to end. And, it was a beautiful thing to see her have that higher perspective and that higher understanding of life and death and our spiritual experience all together. However, even with that understanding, the pain that we feel here in our physical existence is very, very real. And I could imagine that, his family is grieving and hurting very much at this time, especially with how tragically his life was taken. And as I said, everything that he was doing within the community, how he was such an inspiration to so many people in that community and abroad. And what I'm also seeing is all across the world. I've seen even within my own friends list on Facebook, there's people from Africa, Europe, all over the world that is mourning Nipsey's death, who was aware of who Nipsey was and his efforts and works within the community. So, as I was saying, it's just a very, very sad and unfortunate thing. Although we all know that our lives here on this planet is not permanent, it is still very, very unfortunate when we lose, the loss of life in general. But for me, it's It's an entirely different thing, as I stated, when I see a Black man who is using his platform, his influence, and his resources to uplift his community, and for individuals, in my opinion, to have motives to thwart those efforts. It's very, very unfortunate. And it's a very sad thing to see, besides the fact that, you have children who don't have a father here in the present anymore, a woman who has lost her fiance, a mother who has lost her child, a brother that has lost his brother, and so on and so forth. It's just really, really, really unfortunate. And I want to talk about something that really stood out to me besides Nipsey's mother at his homegoing. What really, really stood out to me was his brother. Um, to hear his brother speak of Nipsey and the ways that he did, and, with his brother being the older brother and having so much admiration for Nipsey, how intelligent he was, the ability that they saw in him, how unique he was, and how he did things that, to them, they just felt that it was just so powerful and almost impossible for Nipsey being in the economic situation he was in and the community he was in, and for him to have such a big vision for thinking outside of the box. They saw something very, very special within him, and they knew that his life here on this planet had a greater purpose. So it was very it was just very pleasing for me to see his brother speak so highly of him and talk about, things that Nipsey did, as such as, building a computer from scratch and everyone being so overwhelmed and so, excited about what it is that he was able to do. And, seeing those many, many talents within him. And continuing throughout his life into adulthood to do things that a lot of people in the community just didn't have the tenacity to do. And Nipsey, he did those things, and his with his family being so proud of him for the things that he was able to do. It was very refreshing to see that, especially know, with the situation that was at hand, his funeral, but just those highlights from the funeral that stood out to me and made me have some level of comfort for witnessing such a tragic death. Um, Another thing that really stood out to me about his brother's remarks on Nipsey's life was their business efforts and the things that they were doing in the community and the entities that sought to come out against them. Within his speech, he mentioned that the city wanted Nipsey out of that area that Nipsey was in, where he was, conducting his businesses. And that stood out to me in particular because in my last video, when I talked about, the murder of Nipsey, I went into detail about how the reason I felt that there was something else going on, some sort of conspiracy, was because of the businesses that Nipsey had going on in the particular locations that he had them going. Those areas are prime real estate for developers that want to come in and build things there that will benefit them economically, that will benefit the city economically, and basically just purge out Black people that have been in those areas for many, many generations. And what Nipsey was doing, along with his brother and other family members, they were doing the best that they could to keep those businesses within the community so that Black people could benefit from those businesses. So Nipsey could provide jobs to individuals that would not otherwise be able to get those jobs. For him to keep those programs in the community that would benefit those underprivileged kids, who may or may not be able to have those resources within their community. So, they were very, very firm in their stance that they were not going to take their businesses outside of the community. And I really admired that, their effort to keep their businesses within the community so that it could benefit the people that have been in those communities for years, that, right before their very eyes, they're seeing their cultures and their legacies being destroyed right in front of them. And a lot of people, they're not in the position that Nipsey is in, where they can just start to immediately build an economy, and build businesses there that would combat those developers from coming in and basically just wiping out the community. I was watching a video of a guy that lives in California. I'm not sure if it's particularly in the area where Nipsey had his businesses, but just to give you an idea of what's going on, and what Nipsey was trying to avoid from happening with keeping his businesses there. The developers come in, they want to build these businesses and these different things, these stadiums and these train stations and all these things within communities that people have built cultures within these communities. But unfortunately, with them not having an economic base, they're not able to go up against these corporations that come in. And unfortunately for this man, he's been in the community for 30 years, and he just has to up and leave because he cannot sustain himself with the rising cost of all the developments that's coming in. And, some people would say, why would they be against the community being built up and things coming to the community? And the answer is very simple. Those businesses that are coming in the community, they're not benefiting the people that have been in these communities for decades and generations. And as I stated, this is their culture. This is their, in some ways, their legacy that is being taken away from them. And they are not in the position to stand up against that economically. So when you have an individual like Nipsey, who was able to use his resources to combat some of, the incoming forces that are literally wiping out cultures in these communities, because essentially that is what is happening. It's an erasure of Black culture, because as I stated, a lot of those people have been in those communities for generations and generations. They've built a culture around that community that is being dismantled and destroyed, based on people who just don't care about Black society. And it's a very unfortunate thing, and it enrages me because, within my own city, I ride around and I see the different things that, are being developed. And it's like, why is there a concerted effort by so many people to basically just erase Black culture, to the extent that it doesn't benefit Black people? Because quiet as it's kept, people are benefiting from Black art and other sorts of things every day, but they don't necessarily want Black people to benefit from that art, from that culture. They want to be able to profit from our culture while locking us out of any type of economic progress. Hi, Lily. Um, so, how that relates to Nipsey is, as I was stating, Nipsey, along with his family, they were doing everything that they could to try and keep the momentum going, to sustain some level of economy within that society, to keep, members of that Black community there, and give them some type of base where they won't just be flushed out by the incoming developments. And unfortunately, to a certain degree, I feel as if, that had a lot to do with his passing. But, that's something that particularly stood out to me within his brother's speech, is how he made sure that he put the word out there that there was individuals that wanted to come against his brother's efforts to build an economy within that community for Black people. And, that all pretty much ties into the main topic of what I want to discuss tonight, which is fear of a Black economy. And to some people, that might sound completely outrageous, but I'm going to go into why there is a real fear of a Black economy. Forward Movement says video keeps stopping. I don't know why the video keeps stopping. It's going strong on my end. As I continue to talk, please let me know if the video is going in and out, but it's working fine from my view. Okay, Forward Movement says it's working now. Okay, yeah, I don't know what's going on with the video and why it was going in and out, but hopefully we don't have that problem anymore. And I hope that a lot of what I just said was not missed. But as I was stating, with Nipsey's brother's speech at his funeral, and how he was explaining how city officials, I believe even the attorney general, had a concerted effort to get Nipsey's businesses out of that community. They would readily harass his store. They would readily, send people over there to try and get Nipsey's businesses off of that block, because that area is prime real estate for developers to come in. And one other thing that I forgot to mention was that within his brother's speech, he also stated that with the city coming against them in the ways that they were, and wanting them to get their businesses out of that particular area, when Nipsey and his brother were just renting or leasing the property, the businesses within that property, they successfully were able, the district attorney and other individuals within the power structure within that area, they were able to finally have the people that was owning the property prior to Nipsey and his brother owning the property, they were able to have them come in and let Nipsey know that their business had to go. They had successfully been able to do that, which angered me when I heard that, because that was their goal all along, to get those Black businesses out of there so that they could come in and put in what it is that they want for their financial gain. And fortunately, as Nipsey's brother stated, they were able to go ahead and purchase the land and purchase that particular strip mall so that they wouldn't have to leave. Because if they would have continued to just lease those businesses that they had over there, unfortunately, the people that owned the property, they would have had to kick them out. And I just I feel that, it was very upstanding of the people that own the property to give them an option to purchase so that their businesses wouldn't just be thrown out, as requested from those city officials. Now, excuse me, how all of that relates to our main topic for tonight, fear of a Black economy, is because that is a prime example of what I'm talking about when I say fear of a Black economy. A lot of people may feel that that particular statement is outrageous, but when you put everything together and you see things for what they are, you know that what I'm saying is not far-fetched at all, because there has been so many efforts put in place to destabilize any type of real Black economy. And one of the people that has been very, very outspoken and prevalent within the mainstream to the extent that he has been allowed is Dr. Claude Anderson. He's been a very, very strong supporter of Black people coming together to build a real Black economy. And what a real Black economy is an economy in which Black people are in control of the industries. There's a lot of, Black-owned businesses scattered about across the country. And, I'm not saying that there's people out there that are just straight up telling Black people that they cannot own businesses. But when they want to aggregate those resources and kind of build, districts that will include entire industries of major industries of Black-owned businesses, that is where the problem comes in. And I'm mainly talking about Dr. Claude Anderson tonight because, Dr. Claude Anderson has been out here for decades, pushing and striving for some type of real, functional, and widespread Black economy. One of the things that he was looking forward to trying to do within the city of Detroit was he was looking to start a Black business district. And unfortunately, his efforts were turned down by the city. They stated that it would be racist. So a young lady actually even wrote an article about his vision for a Black business district being racist. And I take issue with that because, here in America, there isn't any major Black corporations or Black industries that are in operation today. And I don't feel that it's racist at all for Black people to want to control the means of a real economy within their community. I think that is absolutely ridiculous that you have so many people of different cultural backgrounds that are able to come into Black communities and set up shop, suck the resources out of the community and take it back to their community. Anybody who feels that Black people wanting to actually, own the means of production within their own communities, I have to question your motives, because as we can see in many other so-called minority communities across the country, people have set up shop. You have Chinatown, you have Greek Town, you have various Jewish communities where they are in control of their economy. So, just the mere idea of Black people saying, hey, we should be able to do the same thing, because whether people want to face it or not, Black America has their own unique culture. They have their own unique way of life. And I don't see why it should be a problem for Black society to be able to have an economy that is specifically going to benefit their community. As I was stating, people like to come into our community. You have people coming from entirely different countries coming to America. And for some reason, with ease and, with a breeze, they're able to come and set up stores in our community. They're able to come and build an economic base within our community. And when we want to turn around and do the same thing, people are telling us that to have something that would be specifically for Black people within their own community, that's racist. And of course, they know it's not racist, but it is a concerted effort to keep Black people struggling financially, to keep us on the bottom of the economic ladder. because I stated in previous videos, whether or not people want to face it or not, America, there's a caste system in this country. And from the inception of this country, it was never meant for Black people to rise to a certain level within this society. So that is why every time you see someone coming up with solutions to try and combat the many issues that we're facing within our communities, one of the main issues being economics, lack of a strong economy for our community, lack of wealth, lack of resources. So when you have individuals such as Claude Anderson that has many plans that he has come up with as ways to build a strong economy within Black society. You have government officials that are thwarting those efforts and telling him that they don't stand by that and they don't support a Black business district in a Black community. That is absolutely unacceptable on every level, because as I was stating, they have no problem with allowing immigrants from other countries to come into Black society and build an economic base for themselves off of the backs of the people in that community. And by and large, the people in that community does not benefit from those businesses that are being set up in their community. It's like everyone is allowed to eat off of Black people, but when Black people want to prepare their own meal to feed themselves, it's a problem. And, that is why I don't buy into the pull yourselves up by the bootstraps argument, because a lot of people want to say that. But when we actually come together and, our efforts are to actually uplift ourselves and build something within our communities for ourselves, and kind of, lock other people out of our economic base within our community, we're told we're racist. And, that is a trick that is being used against us to put people in fear of saying, wait a minute, we want to be able to build something for ourselves within our community that is unique to our needs, that is unique to uplifting our community. And, we don't want to have to apologize for that because no one else does. As I was stating, when you go into Chinatown, you're not questioning the Chinese people about why they have built an economic base for their community. Other so-called minority groups get to do that, and no one is riding their back telling them that what they're doing is discriminatory. Because if we're going to be honest about it, there's white communities and white economic bases and white business districts all over the country, just by default, because Black people do not own any of these major corporations that we are spending our money with. So like I said, just by default, even if they don't want to call it a white economy, by and large, white people are benefiting the most from a lot of the corporations because they own the corporations. So going back to Claude Anderson's situation that he was dealing with trying to build the Black business district in Detroit, and him being told that such a thing would be racist and that they couldn't stand by that and they couldn't support it. My question and what I would say to that is, then why is it that you allow so many other people to build an economic base within the Black community, but you don't allow Black people to set up something that will specifically and directly benefit their economy and the people that are closest to them? There has to be pushback against this, because if we don't stand up for ourselves and we don't let people know that we're entitled to have something for ourselves, then we are going to be in a perpetual state of economic depravity. And, just as everyone else is allowed to build an economy for themselves and provide generational wealth to their families, Black people should be able to do the same thing. You know, what makes us any different than anyone else that we shouldn't feel like we should be able to build an economic base for our community and our children to benefit from? In the chat, For a Movement says, go deeper, Italians, Irish, Jewish, and so on and so forth. Well, yeah, you know, I didn't mention each and every group specifically, but all of those groups would be considered as so-called minority groups, and they are allowed to have an economic base. They're not being told by city officials and government officials that their vision to have an economy for their community is racist. So yes, For It movement, that's very, very true. All of these other what would be considered as so-called minority groups, they are able to do exactly what it is that Claude Anderson wanted to do out there in Detroit with getting that business district started. Other ethnic groups are allowed to do that. And when Black people want to come together and uplift themselves, they're told that that would be discriminatory toward other people. And as I stated, the people that are telling Black people that, they know for a fact that it's not racist because other people are doing it every day. The whole point is to keep Black people economically subjugated, because as I stated, everyone is eating off of us, but we are not allowed to eat off of anyone else. And what's even more outrageous about it is that we're not even trying to go into other people's communities and set up businesses as people are doing to us. And one might argue, well, Black people don't have communities, and that's why people are able to just come in and, you know, basically take advantage of Black people. And to a certain extent, that is true. However, Black people know what it is that they want to do within their own communities, but they're not getting the support of the government as other groups of individuals are able to get that support, able to get those programs going, able to be able to get those loans from the banks to build up their communities. In the chat, For It Movement says, I'm wondering how we can learn to empower the Black economy. What steps can we take? We talk about it, but how can we make changes? Please post for me. I can't post. Okay. Well, I will get into that momentarily about how we can go about doing that. But as I was stating, you know, I mentioned Claude Anderson for a reason, because if you study Claude Anderson's methods, he has plenty of plans in place for things that Black people can do in order to empower the community. Unfortunately, Black people, by and large, don't have the political power that we need to be able to see a lot of these efforts come, you know, to see a lot of these efforts be able to materialize. Because you have to have some level of cooperation from the city to be able to get certain permits to do certain things. So you know, if we want to talk about solutions, one of the first things that we need to do is we need to get our political house in order. You know, we need to come together as a group and go to these politicians and say, look, if we're not able to set up businesses within our own communities to benefit our people, we just won't be supporting any of these businesses. We'll have to come up with ways for a while to make sacrifices and be able to support as many Black-owned businesses as we can that may not necessarily be brick and mortar. And what I mean by that is, we may have to seek out these Black businesses online until we are able to get brick and mortar businesses within our community where we can, set up shop on the block, opposed to having to support the online economy, because that's what a lot of people are doing right now. They're supporting as many Black owned businesses as they can online. But, when it comes to all the goods and services we need, we may not be able to get everything online. But, we have to start somewhere. We have to be able to make sacrifices. We have to come together as a group, and we have to amass a certain amount of political power. That's something that we're just going to have to do, because whether we like it or not, we still have to deal with certain people within our government when it comes to us being able to get in the position where we can set these businesses up on land, as opposed to a more virtual approach to it. Like I said, supporting businesses online and so on and so forth. That is something that we're going to have to begin to do as a community. We're going to have to go to the community meetings. We're going to have to get into the face of these politicians in large numbers, because when you have a person like a Claude Anderson, who in many cases is just a one-man show, it's very easy for them to ignore him, because a lot of this stuff he's going at it on his own. And we have to do away with this individualistic mindset. We have to begin to see each other as a community, because the power is in our unity. The power is in numbers. So when you think about how other people are able to be in a position to do certain things, is because they're not looking at each other as individuals. They're coming together as a group, because a lot of Black people unfortunately have a very individualistic mindset. When you think about statistics and numbers and how things are being done within the country, no one is looking at Kim Jones' individual life and what, this Black person may be doing as an individual person. Everything is categorized into groups. So we need to begin to think as a group, because whether we like it or not, we are a racial group within American society, and everything is done based in groups. So we are going to have to come together as a group so that we can begin to amass power, so we can put pressure on these elected officials in these communities to do the bidding for us. Some people say that, voting is pointless, and that could be true to a certain degree. But within my experiences, what I have seen is that, especially on a local level, there can be a lot of benefits to voting, because, those votes are going to be a direct result of people coming out there and voting for the individual that they would like to see in that particular government position for the community, on a local level. So that's another thing that we could do. We could start getting out here in large numbers and putting people in there that is going to have a vested interest in trying to cooperate with individuals within the Black community that want to empower the community, that want to be able to bring a stable economy to the community. Those are some of the things that we are going to have to do in order to be able to, build a strong economic base for Black society. So I hope that that is, some useful information to Euphoric Movement, as far as how we can come together as a community in order to empower our community, as far as solutions go. And another thing that I wanted to mention, that I've been seeing people talk about lately, is something that I've known about for some years now, but I've never actually really talked about it in a public setting is one thing that we could look into doing within demographics where there's a high level of Black people within that area, which, by default would make it in many ways a Black community. We need to start looking into incorporating some of these unincorporated communities, because once you incorporate a community that has not yet been incorporated, what you can do is you will be able to have control over the economic base within that community. You'll be able to have a lot of control over how the funds are distributed, within the school system, and different things that you want to implement within that community. So as far as solutions go, that's another thing that we could start looking into doing. But we're going to have to be very, very serious about what it is that we want and what we plan to do in order to get it. Because as Forward Movements was saying, we can have these discussions all day, but we have to put action behind the discussions. And that's what I'm hoping that many, many people, will take away from my videos. Because as I stated, I created this channel to speak, specifically to Black people. From time to time, we'll have certain conversations that, all people could be able to benefit from. But by and large, I feel as if the Black community needs to hear a lot of what it is that we talk about here on this channel. And that's why I encourage everyone to like the videos, subscribe to the channel, share the videos, and let's get the message out there. Because as I stated, there's power in numbers, and the more people that are privy to the information that is being discussed here, the more numbers we will have to be able to empower ourselves. So as I was saying, as far as incorporating the communities, that is something that we can definitely look into. I feel that once we're able to amass a political base, we will be able to get a lot done in that way as well. And also, we're going to have to stop being afraid to support individual people that have good ideas. We're going to have to stop a lot of the infighting and a lot of the hate that we have for one another. And when I say hate, I don't necessarily mean like a person hating you, but what I mean is a person, in many ways hating on you. Not wanting to see a person, be able to be aware of something that they may not have been aware of, and just not wanting to be able to seem as if somebody is smarter than you or knows something that you don't know. As a community, everyone has something to offer. So don't be so quick to just push someone to the side because you don't want to hear what they have to say because it wasn't your idea. As I stated, we all have a lot that we can contribute to the discussion, a lot of things that we can do together collectively in order to empower ourselves. Forward Movement says, can you elaborate on what it means to, I guess this is incorporate? Okay, so basically what it means to incorporate the city, as I was saying, there's a lot of cities within the community that are not incorporated. It's a pretty complex, it's pretty complex when you talk about even cities being incorporated. A lot of people may not know that. So I would advise people to do research on how cities are actually incorporated here in the country. The first thing that you need to do is you need to be speaking to the city council. You need to come up with a plan for how you and members of the community will want to go about basically aggregating the resources that are set aside for different communities, and being able to come together and incorporate that community, basically, in some ways, how you would incorporate a business. You would have to come up with a name for the community, and you would have to go and get the proper paperwork in order to incorporate that community. But like I said, it's a lot that goes into it. So I would advise for people to do the research. But basically, that's what it is. Basically, you are having control of the economy of that community by aggregating the resources and bringing individuals together to have control over the finances, and basically, creating your own community. So that is just the gist of what it is to incorporate a community. And that is something that I would advise for Black people to become privy of. We need to be able to bring our money together and get our political house in order, so that we will be able to come together as a group and push back against a lot of the people that want to spend our money. But when we want to be in a position to own and control the means of production within our community, on an economic level, people have a problem with that. And we can no longer stand for that. Day by day, we are witnessing many communities being gentrified, and Black people by and large are being displaced. We're so dismantled and dysfunctional as a community because of economics, and that is the main issue. If we're able to build a strong economic base, we can be in the position to change so many of the things that we're facing. Because when you want to talk about crime, when you want to talk about a lot of the different things that we're seeing within the Black community, poor education, poor healthcare, dilapidated communities, all of that, that is directly tied to the economics of the communities. Black people, by and large, are not aggregating their resources as a group. And that is the main reason why, we are so destabilized. We have to begin to think as a group-minded people. The time for individualism is over. That hasn't gotten us anywhere. Thinking as individuals and, saying to yourselves, well, I'm in a good position financially. That may be good for a certain amount of time. But if things change up really, really fast, you're going to want to be able to have a community to fall back on. Because at any given time, you could be pushed out of where it is that you are when you are operating within a society that does not have your best interest in mind. So you may be doing good in the dominant society, and that is good for you. But at any given time, you can be pushed out. What are you going to have to fall back on if that happens to you as an individual? You need a community to support you. We all need to be supporting one another as a unified community. And there's just no way to get around that. You see other people doing so much better than many people in Black society because they have all of those things that we've discussed in place. They have their political house in order. They have a certain level of unity within their community that, above all else, we are going to be a group-minded people, and we are going to put our group first. You see that within white society, quiet as it's kept. A lot of white people like to deny that, but it's the truth. As I was stating, you don't have to say white community when you're owning 90% of the wealth. You don't have to label it as a white community. It's just a white community and a white economy by default, because you are controlling the means of production for your community by and large. Black people do not control the means of production in white communities. You don't see that. It's something that just does not exist. So what Black people needs to be asking themselves is, Why is there so many people controlling the means of production within our communities? That is something that we really need to sit down and ask ourselves. Why is it that we are allowing other individuals that has no vested interest in empowering our community? Why is it that we are allowing them to control the economy of our communities? It's absolutely outrageous. And I don't think that many people has even bothered to ask themselves that question. So that is the main reason why we see ourselves in the position that we are in, because we feel as if we have integrated into the larger society, and that is just not the case. You know, our physical bodies may be integrated into the system, but economically, by and large, we are still heavily segregated when it comes to economic empowerment. The wealth gap, the wealth disparity between Black and white people is astronomical, something like, 10 times the wealth for many white families. And a lot of Black people don't understand how detrimental that is to Black society. We are so vulnerable because we don't have the type of unity and economic base that we need in order to sustain ourselves. And this is an indisputed fact. You cannot dispute this. If you pay attention to the data, you will see that by and large, Black people are struggling financially. I don't want people to come in here, whoever may be watching this in the playback, because I notice people will come in and they'll comment and they will, they'll make silly comments and they'll continue to talk about individuals. I had someone on a previous video when I was talking about the wealth disparity between Blacks and whites, and they're mentioning to me Oprah, Allen Iverson. These are individual people. We're not talking about individuals. We are speaking as a group. So as a group, by and large, Black people are struggling economically. And it is up to us to change that because, as I was stating, people have a vested interest in coming into our community to profit from us. But when we even dare to want to come together and build a district that is specifically for Black-owned corporations, then people thwart those efforts and call us racist. Meanwhile, you go into their communities and they're owning everything there. And if a Black person even dares to try and come and set up shop in their community, they're eventually pushed out. And I can speak to that from personal experiences because at one point in time, I lived in a community that was predominantly white. And, a man came in, a Black man of Haitian descent. He came and he set up a dollar store within that community. Within a few months, his dollar store was gone. The people, by and large, did not support his store. So, we can't talk about there being an economy for all people when you have a Black person that went into a predominantly white area to set up a business and no one supported his business. I supported his business as much as I could, but I was just one of a few people within that community that was supporting his store. And eventually he had to close down. So I don't want to hear people talking to me about how we shouldn't have race-specific economies within communities because you don't support Black businesses when they come into your community. And this is something that I have witnessed with my own two eyes. So no one can tell me that if Black people, by and large, started coming into predominantly white spaces and set up shop, that you are going to be willing to support them and see them basically overrun you and wipe out businesses that you feel are going to benefit your families financially. It won't happen. And as I stated, I witnessed this with my own two eyes. So what Black people need to do is we need to develop that same mindset that we are going to build economies within our neighborhoods and communities that specifically benefit us. We're going to have to do it unapologetically. We cannot worry about people calling us racist. We cannot worry about people saying we're discriminating because when people set up shop in their communities, they do not allow Black people to come in and be the main focal point of the economy within their neighborhoods. This just does not happen. So, as I was stating, that is the same mindset that we need to develop within our communities. We are going to build something for ourselves. We are not going to apologize about it. And, we will see a lot of things begin to change once we develop that mindset. Like I stated, the time for us to be thinking as individuals is done and over with. The cost of living is getting extremely high in many areas across the country. Black people does not have a strong economic base to be able to sustain ourselves. Another thing that I would suggest is that a lot of us begin to move within the same states. Someone was mentioning that maybe there needs to be a mass exodus back to the South. And that is something that could be very, very plausible, because we can get a few states in which we'll be able to control the economy and the politics of those states. This is something that we really, really need to be doing. And some people may say, well, isn't that just going back into segregation? No, it is not segregation. It is survival. There's no one that has a vested interest outside of Black society to sustain Black people. We're seeing this every single day, as I stated, with gentrification. We are seeing entire Black populations being displaced because people come in, they assess the property, they see value in it, they see what they can do with it. The properties are very, very cheap because, unfortunately, in Black society, there isn't a lot of focus in helping to enrich these communities. So they're able to get cheap real estate, come in, build it up, and make a killing. And Black people are being pushed out because no economic base equivalates to not being able to afford to live in these communities that you have been living in for decades and generations because of a lack of an economic base. At some point, we are going to have to get into the mindset of having power economically. There's, like I said, there's no way around that. That is something that is basically disabling us. We're so vulnerable to so many different things because we are divided. And, it's something that we're just going to have to do. We're going to have to come together, whether we want to or not. That is how we're going to be able to sustain ourselves as a racial group. Forward Movement says, let's just take Florida and Georgia and call it Black America. I think that's a great idea. As I was stating, we really need to get into the mindset of possibly living among each other within a few states. We'll be able to control the politics. We'll be able to control, the economy, and we will see a lot of things change for Black society. I mean, I cannot stress this enough. The time is now. So many things are changing, and we are basically the newborn babies of the financial world. We, right here in America, I'm speaking specifically of America right now. To a certain degree, we are like children when it comes to certain things that are happening in society. By and large, we are not paying attention to many of the things that matter, which is, to me, is very, very embarrassing, because we are allowing other people essentially to take care of us, to control us. As I state all the time, if someone has the power to feed you, they have the power to starve you. And that is what we are seeing in so many ways happening with things such as gentrification. We've allowed people to control these communities. We haven't done anything to have any type of political or financial stronghold in the areas in which we reside. So at any given moment, Someone can just come in and say, okay, we're setting up shop here and you have to go. And what is it that we're able to do about that? Because we have not built an economic base for ourselves. And that is our responsibility. And even if it's going to be hard, we have to do it. We have no other choice. In the comments, God cringe weeb says, yeah, that's a pretty unique name. For a movement says weather is nice. Yeah, with those states that we mentioned, the weather is great. And I feel that it would be a great thing for us to stop being afraid to come together and stop being so afraid of what other people are going to think about what it is that we need to do to empower ourselves. Just being completely honest, that's what a lot of this is. Black people, unfortunately, by and large, are afraid to feel like they're offending white people or other groups of people. And it has nothing to do with how someone personally feels about something. As I stated, this is about survival. This is about being able to sustain ourselves in an ever-changing world. There's no reason that we should be afraid of saying that we want something for ourselves, specifically for our community, specifically for our racial group. Nobody else gets the type of flack that Black people get for saying that they want that. And I feel like it's time for us to just begin to ignore these people that want to, use the shaming tactic against us when we say that we want things for ourselves. I'm not ashamed as many people as possible because the time is now. And that is something that we absolutely have to do. We cannot be afraid to do it. We have to be very, very unapologetic about it. And we need to get to work, outside of social media and other places. We come here to have the group discussions, but beyond the group discussions, we need to go ahead, get boots on the ground and get to work. And I plan within these coming weeks to begin to be more and more active with doing my part on the ground, on a grassroots level, to contribute to doing what it is that I can for my group and for us to have a stronger base within society. So if there's no more comments in the chat, we're going to end it here. As I was stating, please like the video, please share, please subscribe to the channel. Get as many people as possible involved within these conversations. It is very, very important for us to be having these discussions to come up with real and tangible solutions for the community. Because, regardless or if there's a fear of a Black economy or not, at some point, we are going to have to do what we have to do, no matter how many people are going to come against us, because we cannot continue on the way that we have been living. A lot of these situations are just completely deplorable, and it's heartbreaking to see how many Black people are struggling within society. And it's something that does not have to exist. There's so many things that we can come together and do to improve the conditions of our people. And we need to begin to get very, very serious about doing this. It has to go beyond the discussions and the conversations. So I encourage everyone to look into the things that we've discussed here tonight, as far as incorporating the communities, as far as aggregating our resources, going to the community meetings, meeting with different people in your community, and us getting to actually know one another again. There was plenty of thriving Black communities in this country at a point in time. Unfortunately, people did what they did to sabotage these communities. However, I feel like we have to rebuild the communities and we have to continue the efforts of our ancestors. So once again, everybody, please like the video, please share it, subscribe to the channel, comment, and let's keep the conversation going. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you're going to be in the playback, please leave a comment. And thank you all for watching. Have a good night.